Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going through our game week 36 team selection video. Not many game weeks left to go at the sort of back end of the season now, so rank gains to be made, albeit you might have to go a little bit differential and outside the box to make that. Let's get into Josh's team.
Okay then, so yeah, getting into my team. Before we do, make sure you do check out the transfer targets video from last week. It will have a lot of similar assets that you're probably going to need for the back end of the season. We sort of covered, until game week 38 basically in that. We picked up Kevin Sharder in that video, who obviously got a massive haul last week, so I'm sure there's a few others in there that will do those same sort of returns. Going into my team this week then, on the currently 46k, that's pre-Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest tonight. We're recording this on Monday night, so a bit ahead of time, but I don't think too much should affect our thinking really going into these games. So yeah, hoping basically that Mateta doesn't do too much. He's on my bench, and that hopefully Eze does do something, which is highly unlikely for that situation to happen. Going into the team for this week though, we've got Emi Martinez in goal. Obviously, big 9-pointer last week was nice differential. Bournemouth away this week's obviously a bit of a trickier test in terms of the attack, so not expecting too much from him. Could have an argument to maybe play Areola against United away, given how poor United are at going forwards, albeit they just scored 3 goals against Brentford. So yeah, probably a decision to be made. I probably am maybe 80-20 Martinez, though. That West Ham defence isn't fantastic. In the defence, we've got Kiwior, who I'll speak about first. He's probably going to turn into a Nottingham Forest defender as it stands. Not him specifically, though. Probably either Timber or Bradley on my bench. I'll make that transfer. Likely to Milenkovic. I have quite a bit of money in the bank at the moment, so yeah, there's no reason not to. I could get up to Trent from Timber, which is a thought, but a lot of Liverpool fans seem to think that Trent might not play as many minutes now that he's confirmed his exit to Real Madrid. So we'll have to wait and see on that, but definitely a defender transfer will be in my plans this week. Carvalho's got Southampton away, and then we've got Munoz with Tottenham away. Again, any team that is facing United or Tottenham at the moment is a fantastic pick because they're both going to be rotating. Got lots of European football. Same could be said with Arsenal, although we didn't see too much rotation last weekend, and they did lose to Bournemouth, and now that potentially their European place for next season is up for grabs. So given the fact of that, I think they probably would go a bit more full strength. What's the thoughts on that defence, Ben, and the idea of a Forest defender coming in?
Yeah, I think the idea first for a Forest defender is it's probably going to be critical for most managers to bring in some sort of Forest coverage for this game week. Who that may be, I think a defensive asset is sensible. Maybe sort of like not necessary to have an attacking asset, but sensible if you were going to do that. To look at your defence, I agree. Like I think Kiwior looks like to be sort of like the weaker link in that defence at the moment. So if you can bring in a Forest defender for a Timber or Bradley, then yeah, absolutely go for it. Don't think Trent's worth the risk per se, but let's see after this game we can. And you never know, there could be sort of a good opportunity in 38 to bring him in. Yeah, like I said, Guardiola is not a bad option. Southampton away is a decent fixture as well. And I think Munoz actually has potential to really sort of haul against Tottenham away. Just get that feeling that, for Spurs and United, there's no focus on the league at all. It's just all about those European commitments. So I do think anyone who plays up against them, you should be targeting for the last few games of the season at least.
Yeah, and then moving on into the midfield then, we currently have the captaincy on Brian Mbumo. He's just a bit of a flat track bully against the promoted side so far this season. I think he has 4 double-digit hauls out of 5 games. So, yeah, unbelievable statistics. And they're big hauls as well. They're not just the 10-pointers. I think he had an 18-pointer in one of them. So, yeah, really looking forward to captaining him this week. Obviously, did captain Kevin De Bruyne last week, which paid off with the 22-pointer. Could be tempted again this week, but I just, with the history that Mbumo's got against those newly promoted sides, I'm much more leaning towards him this week rather than De Bruyne. I think De Bruyne was relatively lucky anyway to get that haul last week. There was not too much attacking threat going forwards from City. So, yeah, happy to keep it on Mbumo for now. I think that's pretty much locked in for me as it stands. Eze, again, I'm playing him this week. I chose Rodgers last week, so this week Rodgers is definitely going to be hauling off my bench, no doubt about it. But yeah, Tottenham away, similar sort of thoughts with Ben with that Munoz pick. I think Palace assets this week will be really, really good. And then Mo Salah. To be honest, if someone told me they're going to transfer out Mo Salah right now, I wouldn't talk them out of it. His goal threat has dropped significantly in the last 6 weeks, which you'd imagine would happen because they obviously don't really need to play for anything. But it seems like he's getting a lot more assist threat than what we've seen in sort of previous weeks in the season. So if you did need to go differential and really go against the grain, I don't mind chasing that with Mo Salah because to be honest, I don't think many people will captain him. He'll still be at 100% EO, but I don't think a lot will captain him in these last 3 game weeks just because we saw the Liverpool performance on Sunday. They just didn't really look at the races compared to their usual selves earlier in the season. So yeah, what's the thoughts on the midfield, Ben?
Yeah, I think the Eze captaincy pick is a standout pick this week compared to any other options that we've got in FPL this week. So yeah, really like that pick. Like I said, with the sort of Crystal Palace and targets in the Spurs and United of the world, is probably the play for the end of the season, really. So yeah, don't mind that as a pick at all. De Bruyne, in terms of potential captaincy, I think it's an option for sure. I don't think there's actually much in it between De Bruyne and Mbeumo, but of course, historical data over the season suggests that Mbeumo is probably sort of the higher sort of EV pick, and sort of the variance on that could be really, really good. And then yeah, like Salah's not been great, but he is still chasing records. So I think it's he's gonna have a haul between now and the end of the season. I think there's no doubt about that, but it's just when that happens. And Arsenal at home is going to be a tricky fixture, or at least trickier since Arsenal lost last week. And they've got all to play for still in the Premier League compared to Liverpool, who may not have anything really to play for as it stands.
Yeah, and then moving on to the forward line then, as I alluded to, Mateta does start this week, Tottenham away again. Obviously, we haven't seen them play in game week 35 as it stands at the time of recording, so it'd be interesting to see what he does. Hopefully he blanks this week and then returns for me against Tottenham away. That'd be the ideal package there. Penalties is an interesting one with that Palace team because Eze and Mateta keep missing them. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see who is on them. I think it'll be one of them. It's just a case of who. Johan Visser, unbelievable. Honestly, probably one of my favourite players this season. He's only blanked, I think, twice in his last 10 game weeks. He just seems to tick over all the time. Obviously, got that return against United last week, picked up a bonus point as well, which is nice. Ipswich away, you could even argue, if you didn't want to go in Bumo, I wouldn't even mind going Visser, despite not having, obviously, the penalties or any set pieces and stuff like that. Omar Marmoush, a lot of people probably might captain him this week, to be fair. He's heavily owned, 100% EO at most ranks, especially near me and Ben. So yeah, I don't mind that captaincy pick at all. He's probably due a return. He's missed a lot of big chances, I think. I think he's missed 3 in his last 2 games or something like that. So yeah, I'd expect a return soon, but obviously Erling Haaland is on the bench, so just be careful in terms of the minutes, even with De Bruyne as well, because we've seen Marmoush drop back a bit into that sort of De Bruyne role. I think there's, if we do see Erling Haaland, it could be at expense of either of those guys' minutes. And yeah, on the bench, as I say, Morgan Rogers this week. I weren't too impressed with him against Fulham, to be honest. No real attacking threat there. So I'll just bench him this week and he'll return 15 points. And then, yeah, the rest of the defence sort of picks itself. So, see, the idea is to bring in that Forest defender as it stands. But if obviously, I'll update people on Instagram if it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. The forward line is strong, and that Rodgers benching sort of dilemma is a bit of a difficult one. But of course, like we've got to base it on sort of form and Villa. Sort of, are they running out of steam? I'm not too sure. But we'll just have to wait and see. Like the fixture is slightly difficult, given that it's Bournemouth, and I think I prefer those Palace games. But yeah, like you said, I think the picks that you've got there warrant sort of themselves starting. Okay, so moving on into my team, and we're ranked at 60k in the world at the moment, which has been sort of like we've been plodding along in terms of the green arrows, not sort of too many huge green arrows like we've seen on Josh's side, but we've got Munoz and Mateta still to play this evening at the time of recording, so we'll have to just see how sort of like that affects the rank. I imagine it'll be sort of around the similar sort of rank by the time we get out of this game week, pending sort of like, of course, like Ismail Assar not doing too much damage to me. So moving into the defence, we've got Raya in goal. It's a bit of a sort of coin toss almost between him and Kepa. I think I've got to really sort of go for. I've got Rogers currently in the team for sort of clarity, and I think if I start Rogers, I have to sort of go with Raya. But if I don't start Rogers and I bench him, I could bank on that Bournemouth potential clean sheet and go for Kepa. I think both Kepa and Raya relatively low chance of getting a clean sheet this week, so I've got to go with my gut on that. At the moment, this is on Raya, but that could easily change by the deadline. Moving on into defence, we got Williams in there from Nottingham Forest, sort of held him through for the decent fixture run towards the end of the season. Although, as we know, their defensive stats haven't been too great as of late, but the Leicester at home fixture is a really good one for them. Gvardiol and Munoz, just like Josh as well. So fairly similar in terms of the setup of the defence to Josh and how his is going to look too. What's your overriding thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, exactly that. Obviously, Leicester at home is probably the best fixture in terms of defensive one at the moment. Gvardiol, Munoz, a lot of managers own them as well, so nothing too much to write home about those guys. Interesting one with the sort of the goalkeeper pick. I could see Arsenal keeping a clean sheet, to be fair, at Anfield, because if they are going to get a result, I think they are going to need to do that. So it'll be an interesting setup and see how they play, because obviously they've got the PSG game beforehand as well, which could give us an indication into sort of their tiredness, I guess you could say. So be very, very interesting. At the minute, I'd side with you and start in Raya at Anfield.
Okay, so moving on into midfield, and as we spoke about, Morgan Rogers is in there at the moment. Again, a coin flip between him and Ismail Assar. There could be bearing an impact. If I get burned by Sarr being on my bench this game week just gone, then I may be tempted to go with him ahead of Rogers. It's going to be one of those 50-50 decisions that I'll have to make. Again, don't think there's too much between them this week. Mo Salah against Arsenal at home, not on the captaincy as it stands, and I don't think that will happen because Mbeumo is such a good captaincy option this week. Ipswich have been really susceptible from Mbeumo's side of the pitch to conceding chances, and like Josh said earlier, Mbeumo's record against the bottom four teams has been fantastic so far this season. Jared Bowen rounds off the midfield, transferred him in last week for Yuri Tielemans, annoyingly. So, there's not actually too much in it. Both picked up 9-point hauls. So, can't complain too much. But happy to own Bowen going forward, especially with that Man United away game. I think that's really sort of well set up for him. Josh, the United fan, may have differing thoughts, but let's see on that.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think I'd expect United to rotate post Bilbao. Obviously, 3-0 up first leg. I don't expect it to be too bad and going into extra time and things like that. So hopefully they can get the job done in 90 minutes. But yeah, still going to be a weakened side, I'd suggest, against West Ham at the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see who they play, because I think last time out when we expected Amorim to rotate, not the weekend gone, the weekend before, he sort of played quite a strong 11. So it's been quite hard to predict with these rotations, but even still, with United's strongest 11, I still expect West Ham to create chances. And Bumo, we obviously spoke about. I just can't see myself going against him this week. He's just the data and his performances this season. I know he only got an assist last week against United in a full goals game, but yeah, I just think it's a no-brainer this week. Rodgers is an interesting one. Like I say, it's him and Sarr is very, very close. I think I'd probably just edge it Sarr just for that Tottenham game. Again, they've rotated their back four in every single Premier League game, I think, since they've got through to these latter stages. And especially going away to Norway, I'd imagine that to stay the same. So, yeah, for me, I'd probably edge it Sarr, but we'll see how he gets on tonight.
Okay, and finally moving on to the strike force. We've got fairly similar strike force in terms of Mateta and Marmoush up top. Marmoush is my vice captain at the moment. I think the fixture for Man City is a very good one, and of course they need a result. So I envision them, getting a few goals in that. Similar sort of thoughts with Mateta. I think there's that opportunity for Mateta to sort of get a haul against that rotated Tottenham backline. And then Alexander Isak is a really interesting one. Chelsea looks really solid against Liverpool. However, this is a massive game for both teams. It's going to be going one or two ways. It's going to be really sort of a tight affair, no one wanting to lose. But if we get an early goal, it could be an absolute goal fest with sort of both teams sort of going for it. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. Isak, of course, got that penalty last week and maybe a little bit lucky to get returns there. And then, of course, on the bench, Kepa, Sarr, Konza, and Timber. Like I said, Sarr, the only sort of question mark, as well as Kepa. So, Josh, what's the thoughts on the team overall? There's no plans to make any transfers this week. There's a temptation maybe to bring in Visser or one of these strikers, but again, like, it's difficult to sort of make that decision and justify any one of them to come out at this current moment in time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I don't think it needs a transfer by all means. Obviously, Isak, I was fuming when he got that penalty as a non-owner. Last minute of the game, it would have I'll probably be at about 20k rank or something stupid like that. It was obviously 100% EO, so big impact to that penalty with the nine points and 3 bonus points. But yeah, I agree what you say. That's like a cup final, that Chelsea Newcastle game. You'd imagine whatever team wins it gets Champions League football. So yeah, it'd be an interesting watch. I'm excited to watch it as a neutral anyway, with no assets from either team. So should be an interesting one, but I wouldn't really suggest, excuse me, transferring them out at this stage, especially with the home fixture, St James's Park. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely raucous. So yeah, it could be odds on for a decent return this week again. And Mateta and Marmoush, again, similar players. I think they sort of picked themselves this week, both decent options within their own right. It would be interesting to see how many minutes Mateta gets this week, because we have been seeing a lot of early subs and even that bench appearance against Arsenal. So, yeah, maybe a question mark if he's only going to be getting 50, 60 minutes. Could you look at Avisa that way if you really wanted to bring him in, potentially? But I don't think it's a fire you need to put out right now. Okay then, so that wraps up our GW36 team reveals. Let us know what you'll be doing in the comments. Obviously, as we say, we're recording this on Monday night. We appreciate it's not ideal with obviously so many games in the week, but it's just the only date that me and Ben could do this week. So yeah, any questions and any updates and stuff like that will all be over on Instagram.
Absolutely. And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
We'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.
So you may rise, but you'll never make me